An emergency mechanical arm rockets in and injects Kong with a recovery serum. This does more than heal him, it transforms him into a vastly more powerful King Kong. The tale opens in a strange realm thousands of miles beneath the Earth's crust, where nightmarish beasts dominate everything from the skies to the abyssal waters. Here we meet the guardian of this domain, King Kong, approaching a lake with a small monkey, completely unaware he is about to stumble into a trap. The little ape suddenly detects a colossal threat lurking beneath the lake's surface, yet he deliberately taunts Kong to enter the water. His deception, however, does not go unnoticed by Kong. He merely catches a scent on the breeze and instantly knows he has located worthy prey today. Without any fuss, Kong wades directly into the lake and begins washing himself calmly. Meanwhile, the small monkey grows anxious that his scheme might be uncovered, so he feigns drinking water. Suddenly, an alien creature begins charging toward them at high velocity. While bathing, Kong senses the peril too. As he glances back, a giant dragon lunges at him with its enormous jaws gaping wide. Seeing this, the little monkey realizes his ruse has succeeded and dashes toward the shore to save his own hide. Kong had triumphed in every conceivable battle on land, but this was his first time facing such a foe in the water. Just as Kong attempts to read its movements, the dragon suddenly drags him deep into the lake, unaware of just how dangerous Kong becomes when enraged. Meanwhile, the little monkey believes he has finally rid himself of Kong forever, but in the next instant, King Kong's massive weapon lands directly in front of him. Before the little monkey can even register what is happening, Kong slams the dragon's severed head down right before him. Gazing upon this, the little monkey expects Kong to pummel him mercilessly, but Kong does nothing. He merely retrieves his axe and motions for him to proceed onward. In truth, the monkey was unaware that King Kong had roamed this world alone for millennia, searching for another like himself. He went hungry daily, and the vicious wolves here perpetually hounded and harassed him. When hundreds of wolves would close in, he would sometimes escape by leaping away, but this time the pack refused to relent. They kept maneuvering to encircle him. Finally, upon reaching a deep gorge with no avenue of escape, he was forced to turn and brace for combat. The wolves assumed this hunt would be effortless, but they had no inkling that King Kong had already laid a snare. As soon as one wolf lunged, Kong's trap sprang, snagging the beast instantly. Tumbling into the pit, sharp wooden stakes pierced straight through the wolf. Seizing the opportune moment, Kong hoisted a heavy tree trunk and hurled it into the pit. As traps triggered in sequence, massive boulders cascaded down the mountainside, trapping the wolves attempting to flee, yet as the dust cleared, a handful of surviving wolves remained unwilling to abandon the chase. Enraged, King Kong snatched a wolf carcass and, showcasing his brute force, tore it cleanly in half. Witnessing this, the remaining wolves cowered and fled with their tails between their legs. Despite securing his meal, there was no satisfaction on King Kong's face, for a rotting tooth in his mouth was tormenting him immensely. Meanwhile, a lizard lurking nearby saw an opening, snatched a chunk of meat, and bolted. King Kong instantly lunged to intercept it, but then his attention was diverted by a sound emanating from the distance. Hearing that roar from the valley, he sensed perhaps one of his own kind was summoning him. So he immediately sprinted toward the source, but upon arrival, he discovered only a peculiar frog mimicking his call. After years of wandering, he remained utterly alone, and this void was shattering him internally. Ultimately, the agony of his tooth compelled him to seek aid from humans. Reluctantly, he ventured into the human world. Upon arriving, King Kong collapsed upon a hill and awaited assistance. Fortunately, scientists located him, but in a state of alarm, the humans administered a heavy dose of anesthesia for safety, knocking him unconscious on the spot. Subsequently, they summoned the city's most renowned dentist. Without hesitation, the dentist secured a strong steel cable tightly to extract the decayed tooth. Right then, Kong emitted a putrid odor from his mouth. Once all arrangements were complete, as the spacecraft abruptly lifted off, King Kong's massive tooth came flying out with a sharp tug. When King Kong regained consciousness, he found his old tooth had been substituted with a robust titanium one. With this new tooth, he experienced an incredible surge of vigor, making him feel as though he could conquer anyone now. But suddenly, an emergency beacon from King Kong's realm reached the laboratory, stunning everyone. To uncover the truth behind this signal, scientists hastily assembled a rescue squad and commenced the operation. They leapt through the portal alongside King Kong, which led directly into his world. As they advanced, their craft began being dragged downward at tremendous speed, and within moments, they entered that enigmatic domain. Upon reaching his home, Kong saw that his provisions had been plundered. He immediately seized his axe and headed straight to the summit of a cliff. There he observed a faint azure glow emanating from within a deep fissure, which captivated his attention. To investigate the source, he plunged into that abyss without a second thought. Arriving in absolute darkness, his axe began radiating light on its own accord. As the illumination spread, he beheld strange luminescent stones scattered all around, reacting to the glow. Abruptly, a terrifying roar reverberated from afar. Following the sound, he arrived at the opposite side of a waterfall where he glimpsed a novel, concealed world. Advancing cautiously, he detected an odd scent luring him forward. Suddenly, an exceedingly dangerous and colossal silhouette materialized before him. Beholding it, King Kong immediately raised his axe and readied himself for a confrontation. As the distance between the two diminished, that gargantuan shadow gradually shrank, and when it stepped forward, the reality was something else entirely. In truth, it was no monster, but a small, innocent, yellow-furred monkey, which stunned him as well. Seeing a kindred spirit for the first time in thousands of years, King Kong promptly bowed and lowered his weapon. Afterwards, he extended his hand to befriend the monkey. He assumed the little ape would be elated to encounter another like himself, too, but instead, it bit King Kong hard. Having located one of his own after such immense hardship, King Kong was not about to let him slip away so easily. So he pursued the monkey, but then a menacing shadow loomed behind him, shocking him profoundly because he had never before seen a bald gorilla of his own stature. As Kong began moving toward him, two long-armed gorillas suddenly appeared from behind and slammed him violently onto the ground. Observing the smirk on the bald one's face, it was obvious they had arrived with hostile intent. So King Kong now resolved to eliminate them as well. He instantly grabbed a rock and hurled it at the gorilla. Incensed, the bald one also charged to assail him, but Kong cunningly overpowered him, too. In short order, he kept sending everyone crashing to the dirt. Even the bald one, despite wielding Kong's own axe, could do nothing and ended up flat on his back. As King Kong moved to retrieve his weapon, the little yellow monkey suddenly scurried over and attempted to claw at his face. Seeing this, King Kong snatched him, too, and employing him as a flail, delivered a sound thrashing to the other gorillas. Though they realized they were no match for King Kong, they still persisted in attacking him one by one. Witnessing this situation, the bald one grew terrified and immediately whirled to flee. King Kong scooped up a nearby rock and flung it at him, striking him squarely in the skull. Despite the injury, he bolted without a backward glance, mumbling something under his breath. Then King Kong plucked that monkey hiding among the trees, yanked him out, and slammed him forcefully onto the ground. Afterward, he retrieved the bald one's dropped blade from the dirt and gestured for the little monkey to guide him to the gorilla stronghold. The hapless little monkey began trudging ahead out of necessity, with King Kong trailing behind him. As they ventured deeper inside, they began to encounter numerous dangerous beasts, but within this serene-looking locale, peril lurked at every step. Seeking to escape, the little monkey cunningly steered him toward the territory of a giant dragon, unaware that his trickery would not hold up long against King Kong. Abruptly, a giant dragon stood before him, yet instead of being frightened, Kong dispatched it within mere minutes and then settled down to consume it calmly. Observing this, the little monkey also desired to approach him but lacked the nerve due to fear. Perceiving his state, King Kong himself tore off a chunk of meat and extended it toward him. Still, the little monkey could not bring himself to trust him. Seeing this, King Kong grew irritated and tossed the meat onto the ground as if to say, "Eat it if you wish, otherwise go to blazes." The famished monkey immediately began devouring the meat, and with each mouthful, his perspective started shifting. He felt that King Kong was not as malevolent as he had presumed. Slowly, he mustered courage, came to sit near King Kong, and the two spent time together in peace. At that juncture, it appeared precisely like a father sharing a tranquil moment with his offspring, but they had no inkling that as they progressed forward, danger was hurtling toward them rapidly. As they reached deeper, King Kong finally observed creatures resembling himself, yet his heart ached seeing they were subsisting under atrocious conditions. They were all forced into grueling labor day in and day out, their existence akin to hell. During this, an elderly ape accidentally dropped a stone, which enraged a gorilla overseer who proceeded to beat him viciously. Witnessing this, King Kong could not restrain himself. He slammed his axe into the ground and lifted the old ape. Just then, a guard stormed toward King Kong in a fury and warned him not to meddle, but the next moment, King Kong's audacity ignited hope within the other apes. However, at that very moment, the escaped bald one was surveilling all of this. He immediately went and reported everything to the ruler here, Scar King. Hearing the gorilla's account, Scar King's wrath erupted. As he rose from his throne, every ape in his vicinity prostrated themselves before him, yet King Kong stood his ground unflinchingly. Scar King scrutinized him and chuckled derisively upon noticing the steel tooth in Kong's mouth, but the next instant, to vent his spite, he kicked an ape into the glowing magma. Witnessing this, King Kong's fury reached its zenith. To flaunt his might, Scar King drew a weapon from his shoulder and readied himself to teach King Kong a lesson. Kong instantly seized his axe as well, and a ferocious duel erupted between them. Exploiting the reach of his elongated weapon, he struck abruptly, and King Kong faltered for a moment. Scar King landed several blows upon Kong using the crystal affixed to his weapon. Infuriated, Kong lunged at him. In terms of raw power, he was no match for King Kong, so he maintained his distance and attacked persistently, forcing King Kong to retreat gradually. In the chaos, King Kong's axe also slipped from his grasp and clattered to the ground. Seizing the opening, he caught King Kong's throat with his weapon and tried to subdue him. Scar King believed he had secured victory, but King Kong summoned all his might to hoist him up and smash him brutally onto the ground. King Kong had him pinned in an instant. Then Scar King resolved he would not cease until he unveiled his true power. As the gem in his weapon began glowing, the gorillas abruptly obstructed the lava's flow by dropping boulders. At that precise moment, the eyes of a horrifying monster concealed within the cave became visible. The blistering ground suddenly turned to ice, and outlumbered that colossal creature, Titan Shimo, who had once encased the entire globe in frost. Scar King instantly commanded him to assault Kong, yet Shimo appeared unhappy with this directive. As the pressure mounted upon him, he writhed in agony and was compelled to attack, demonstrating startling agility. King Kong immediately sprang aside, evading the initial strike. Thereafter, he attempted to brace himself by planting his axe forward, but against Shimo's force, all his efforts began to falter. Before his very eyes, his hands commenced freezing over, transforming into ice. His right hand was severely mangled by the sudden attack, and he started weakening. Spotting the opportunity, Scar King immediately ordered his opponent finished off. As the subsequent attack loomed, the little monkey signaled toward a tunnel behind them, urging him to flee at once. At that exact moment, Shimo was forced to strike again. Witnessing this, King Kong instantly spun and bolted inside the tunnel, but hundreds of hostile apes were still in hot pursuit. The fortunate aspect was that, having dwelled here for years, Kong had laid numerous snares across the jungle, yet the quantity of those apes was so vast that they soon cornered the injured Kong at a dead end. Now he had only this final trap left upon which to rely, but the apes, having triggered traps throughout the chase, abruptly grew wary. They immediately spotted the vine on the ground intended to activate the mechanism. When Kong saw his plan had failed, he sensed his demise was near. At that exact moment, the trap atop the hill unexpectedly triggered, and hundreds of tons of heavy rock cascaded straight down upon them, burying all the apes there. Then Kong observed that the one who had activated the trap was none other than that little monkey. Now Kong was gravely wounded and in no condition to fight, so he began returning to the humans aided by the small monkey, unaware that one of the apes had still survived. Meanwhile, the scientists accompanying Kong discovered that their base was utterly demolished. Just then, their gaze fell upon a colossal handprint upon a cliff face, from which they deduced that other giant entities like Kong inhabited this realm. Soon they ventured deep into the forest where they spotted a concealed mechanism. As soon as the woman pressed it, water began streaming down from several locations. That water coalesced into a swift current and started flowing deeper into the jungle. The scientists traced it and arrived at a strange, mystical wall that had been hidden in an unseen location within the forest. The instant they touched that wall, a blue luminescence pulsed across its surface. Seeing this, they promptly bored a hole through the wall, and then a spectacle unfolded before them that left their eyes wide with awe. Behind the wall existed a world so stunning and enigmatic that none had ever witnessed or heard of it. As soon as the scientists stepped into this realm, indigenous people of that world abruptly encircled them. These beings appeared human, yet their attire was entirely distinct from typical humankind. Without doing the scientists any harm, they escorted them directly to their tribe. Arriving there, they discovered that these people had dwelled beneath the earth for millennia, safeguarding the portal that connects directly to the surface world. Scar King had been scouring for this location for years so he might conquer the human world via this gateway. At that very moment, catching the scent of humans, King Kong reached the scientists, but due to the invisible barrier, he could not perceive the world within. So the tribe's members created a fissure in that magical wall, through which Kong readily entered and reached the humans, unaware that all of this was being observed by the monkey tailing them. As soon as King Kong reached the humans, he grew feeble and collapsed straight onto the ground. The scientists observed that Kong's hand was severely compromised and he was in no state to act. Seeing this, the doctor instantly determined that Kong's hand would require complete replacement. He immediately thought of the mechanical arm. This was the very same super-mechanical appendage that humans had previously engineered to augment Kong's might. The fortunate part was that this device remained safely stored in the subterranean mechanical vault beneath the ravaged base. Soon the doctor retrieved it and deployed it directly above Kong's body, and then that apparatus automatically recognized Kong's injured part and commenced attaching itself. As soon as the specialized serum within that hand coursed into Kong's body, the unconscious Kong experienced a fresh wave of power. The elation on his face plainly indicated he was greatly pleased with this new weapon. But then abruptly, the little monkey came dashing out of the jungle. He informed Kong that Scar King had located the portal's position and was preparing to assault the tribe alongside Shimo. Kong alone could not withstand Scar King and Shimo, so he had only one remaining option: travel to the human world and rouse Godzilla, who had slumbered for ages. But he had no idea that the very ally he sought to summon, that very Godzilla, would ultimately prove to be his greatest threat. Suddenly, the ground surrounding the pyramid began quaking violently, and a mechanical hand surfaced from below. This was the sight that opened the portal to reach the surface. Soon Kong emerged from the portal. Sensing Kong's presence, Godzilla abruptly awoke from his slumber and, without hesitation, began moving directly toward him. Upon reaching Kong, Godzilla assumed Kong had arrived to challenge him, so he charged at him full throttle without wasting a second. The fury in his eyes unmistakably declared he had no intention of letting Kong survive. Witnessing Godzilla bearing down on him, Kong raised his hand in an attempt to explain, but Godzilla was in no mood for discourse. He collided squarely with Kong, hurling him hundreds of meters away. Seeing Godzilla persist, Kong counterattacked from the flank, hoping to somehow pacify him, yet as sand filled his eyes, Godzilla grew even more incensed. He whirled and seized Kong's hand in his jaws, then slammed him brutally onto the ground, leaving Kong utterly dazed. Kong had not even recuperated when Godzilla lunged at him anew. When words proved futile, Kong also launched a potent counteroffensive. Though Godzilla was in his most formidable state, the power of the mechanical arm now rendered Kong no less formidable than any adversary. But when Kong realized he could not overcome Godzilla, he seized him without hesitation and began forcibly dragging him toward the portal. On the opposing side, the tribal people blended a peculiar scarlet liquid into the water to impede Scar King. As the fluid dissolved, a magical metamorphosis commenced. A mechanism activated that began joining two immense pyramids together, and as soon as these pyramids merged, gravity would dissipate temporarily, causing everyone to float in midair, which would render it virtually impossible for Scar King to access the portal. But before the pyramids could fully conjoin, Scar King arrived. Upon his arrival, he identified that anti-gravity mechanism. He instantly commanded Shimo to block the passage between the pyramids with ice. Abruptly, a brilliant radiance burst forth from the portal and descended upon the earth. In the next moment, Godzilla and Kong emerged, tearing through the rubble. As soon as Godzilla's gaze settled upon Shimo and Scar King, he comprehended everything, precisely why Kong had dragged him here. So without hesitation, he allied with Kong and charged at them. On the other side, Scar King also began advancing toward them alongside Shimo. Neither side possessed any weakness. As the four clashed, at that very instant, the ice shattered and the pyramids collided. The shockwave from that impact neutralized the gravity of the entire vicinity. Everyone began drifting through the air, yet despite this, Godzilla continued maneuvering toward Shimo, dodging rapidly even without gravity. Meanwhile, the cunning Scar King snatched up Kong's axe and assailed him with it, yet Kong parried every swing using his mechanical arm. Within moments, the tide turned, and Kong began overwhelming Scar King, but due to the multitude of foes, he started receiving attacks from behind. Witnessing this, the little monkey commenced aiding Kong by lobbing stones. Then, seizing an opening, Shimo attacked Godzilla and completely entombed him in ice within moments. But Godzilla was no weakling. He shattered the ice with a single violent convulsion. At that precise moment, the anti-gravity system deactivated and gravity resumed. Capitalizing on the shift, Scar King wriggled free from Kong's grasp and vaulted straight into the portal. To intercept him, Godzilla and Kong also leapt after him, but in the ensuing bedlam, Kong's axe was left behind. On the surface, humans had no notion of the immense threat approaching. Suddenly, the ocean swells froze into mountainous formations of ice. The next instant, Scar King arrived on Earth with Shimo. Beholding the light of the open sky and the humans below, he emitted a mighty roar. Now he sensed his moment to dominate the entire world had arrived. He commanded Shimo to freeze the heavens. Shimo was loath to comply, yet out of compulsion, he began showering ice across the land. Right before their eyes, structures began freezing and crumbling amid this devastation. Just as Scar King believed none could halt him, Kong landed a tremendous punch that sent his 3-ton tooth clattering to the pavement. Enraged, Scar King ordered an assault upon Kong, but at that same instant, Godzilla arrived and intercepted Shimo. Now deprived of Shimo's support, Scar King could not endure long, so he hoisted a colossal building and hurled it toward Kong, though it inflicted minimal harm. Then unexpectedly, Shimo materialized from behind and clamped onto Kong's mechanical arm. Shimo commenced freezing Kong's hand once more. Observing this, Scar King deemed his triumph assured, but he disregarded the wrathful Godzilla looming behind him. Godzilla instantly unleashed his full potential, and his body blazed with violet luminescence. In the next breath, he launched a direct, devastating assault upon Scar King, yet Scar King panicked and narrowly evaded. He attempted to retaliate with his weapon, but Godzilla caught it and snapped it cleanly in twain with a single wrench, causing the crystal that governed Shimo to fall free. Scar King lunged to retrieve it, but Godzilla afforded him no opening. Now everything hinged upon that crystal. Whoever secured the crystal would claim victory in this struggle. At that critical juncture, the little monkey's gaze landed upon the axe Kong had abandoned. He instantly leapt down and reached the human world bearing the axe. As soon as his eyes landed upon that crystal resting on the ground, he shattered it with a solitary swing of the axe without hesitation. The moment the crystal broke, Shimo was entirely liberated. The wrathful Scar King was about to seize and kill the small monkey, but Kong intervened and pounced upon him, pinning Scar King down after merely a few punches. Now bereft of that crystal, Scar King had grown feeble. On the other flank, the freed Shimo began glancing toward Godzilla as though awaiting a signal, and then, after millennia, he did precisely what he had always yearned to do. In a single instant, he transformed Scar King into a frozen statue. The next moment, Kong heaved him skyward and smashed him onto the ground with every ounce of his strength, shattering his form right there. Now, the conflict was concluded. Following this, Godzilla withdrew to his domain and lapsed into a profound slumber, and Kong returned deep within the earth alongside his new companion, and the story ends right here.